Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder of the Lean Startup Company, Ries.
Good morning. Thank you very much for coming back. How you like our new venue this year? How we doing? Yes? All right, good. You guys came for good weather, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks again to everybody for coming. Thanks to all of our speakers from yesterday. I felt like I was very proud of what we were able to do yesterday, and I felt very grateful. I wanted to say a few words kind of before we get started, just to kind of frame today and some thoughts about yesterday. First of all, I want to say a couple words about the program that you see on stage. We use the main stage, these big talks in the morning, to inspire and hopefully get people fired up and excited about the possibilities that are to come. But I hope as many of you as possible took advantage of the talks that we have in the afternoons, the breakouts, the workshops, the more in-depth conversations. One of the things we see is when we get people away from the main stage and the lights aren't so bright and the cameras aren't going, is actually where a lot of the more real, in-depth, nitty-gritty, difficult conversations happen about not just the successes, but the other things that can happen when you try to do this. And so we followed that pattern again today. There's some really incredible talks in the afternoon. And the other thing I hope you've noticed is we really try to design this program to reflect the full diversity of our community, all the different kinds of people that are applying these ideas. And that includes, some famous people and some people who are big names, and we're very proud to see so many of the thinkers affiliated with the movement be recognized in big ways, in mainstream ways. I was very excited the other day to see there's a group called Thinkers 50 that tries to figure out the top 50 thought leaders in the world, whatever that means. And several of the people affiliated with Lean Startup are new to the list this year, which is very exciting. In fact, you're about to hear from my good friend Alex Osterwalder, who not only was ranked in the top 50, but won the very coveted strategy award. So we do have the big names and the famous people, but we also really strive to make sure this is a conference where you're going to hear stories from people that you're not going to hear anywhere else. People who maybe this is their first time speaking at a conference at all, whose story is not as well known, as well shared, because we think that that's actually where the real learning happens. It's not just from people who are big successes already, but we have the opportunity to hear from folks who are in the trenches right now, practicing these techniques and are able to share in a kind of more contemporary way, here's what's working for me, and more importantly, what's not working for me right now. And the process that is required to produce that lineup is actually quite involved. And as a result, we get kind of sucked into the debate that's, I'm sure many of you are aware of, about whether Silicon Valley is or is not a meritocracy, as if it's some kind of binary thing that you either are or are not. Our belief as a team is that you can become more and more merit-based. And we've written a lot online about the merit-based selection process that we have. If you want to learn more about that, please go online. But as a result of that process, we're able to solicit a much more diverse range of talks and speakers, so I hope you appreciate that. And it's actually not me doing the selection. So I feel like the credit for us creating this program goes not only to the team who works for the company that produces this conference, but we have a number of folks who have acted as faculty for our conference this year, a number of people who are advisors and what we call ambassadors who help us source attendees and speakers from different communities. So if you meet somebody from our faculty or from the ambassador program, if you meet one of the many mentors who are doing the mentoring sessions, please do say thank you to them, because it's because of that large network that we're able to produce this lineup. So I want to say a couple things about what we heard yesterday and what we're going to hear today. And one of the really interesting themes is that when people first hear about Lean Startup, and this is true when they learned about Lean manufacturing too, they have a tendency to focus on the tools and the techniques, the specific tactics. What do I need? What tools do I need? How do I do split testing? How do I do MVP? And those things are important. That's why we do a whole conference about them. But the common thread I hope you start to see between these different talks is that the real change that has to happen is not in tools and techniques, but it's a mental change. It's a change in the mindset of the people that do the work. And I wanted to tell you a story from a company I was working with recently. This is a startup that makes home appliances. So many of you probably have one of their products in your home. right now. And because they had had some success and they already had a manufacturing process and they'd grown a little bit, they had found themselves in a situation where they started to become conservative, as a lot of startups do. Whenever they wanted to come up with a new appliance, they had a very extensive QA process. They wanted to make sure they could manufacture it at scale and have it be a big thing. And as a result, they were struggling to be more entrepreneurial, like we were talking about yesterday. And one of their teams came to a workshop that I was teaching about Lean Startup. And I sat with them, and I don't come from a hardware background. My background's in software, so I always try to be very respectful and cautious when dealing with products that could explode. That's one of my favorite things about software, is it never physically explodes. That's, gives me a certain comfort when I go to sleep at night. So I wanted to, talk to them. I said, well, probably the real challenge here to create a minimum viable product is like, we're going to have to do some kind of small batch manufacturing or 3D printing to create a prototype. And they were like, oh no, we got that taken care of. We have a prototype already. We had to create a prototype for the purpose of testing and making sure that the thing actually works. I said, oh, well, the prototype must be like locked up in a special facility where you can't get access to it. They're like, no, it's in our office right now. I was like, oh, well, that's great. Then the problem must be, how are we going to create like a small batch way for you to sell this product, get some early customers? So we have to go, like, obviously Walmart's not going to carry one individual appliance in a store. We have to go find a small boutique retailer that you can do a partnership with. They said, well, actually, we have a model store that we use to bring customers in and show them our products. I said, okay, well, then the problem must be the store is really far away and you can't get access to it. They're like, no, it's in the same building where we work. I said, the same building where the prototype is sitting right now? Is it a locked facility? You can't, they're like, no, we have the keys. Do you have to get someone's permission to go in the store? Like, no, we run the store. I said, okay, is the appliance really heavy? And you can't carry it? Do we have to get a dolly into your office? And they're like, no, it's all, and I was like, physically, what's the distance between your office and the store? It's like, it's 100 yards. He's like, okay, so could you go back to your office, pick up the appliance, walk it the 100 yards to the store, and show it to them customers? I said, absolutely not. Of course not, that's impossible. But we'd actually all work through all the steps, and it was like so interesting, because like for years, they had already had all the tools and mechanics they needed to do the kind of experimentation we talk about, and yet the only thing that hadn't occurred to them is no one had given them the permission, they had not had the mental framework for why that would be a valuable thing to do. So what we hope that you'll take away from this is that mindset, and start to infect the people that you work with that mindset, and to experiment and see what's possible. And kind of looking ahead to the future a little bit, I think what we are going to discover is that the entrepreneurial function inside of companies is currently underdeveloped. And as a result, there are 4 really different activities that every company that I know does that are managed separately as if they're independent activities. There's the activity of creating a brand new product, and we've seen a lot of examples, and we'll see a lot of examples today of people doing that. There's the activity of creating a new process, a new IT, HR, internal finance process. We've got some great speakers who have spoken about that both yesterday and today. We have people whose job it is to figure out how to partner with startups and partner with other companies, create joint ventures. And then we have usually corporate development, whose job, even in a relatively small but fast-growing startup, we're buying other startups and figuring out who to acquire. And those are currently run in 4 different parts of the company by 4 different people according to 4 different standards. And my claim to you, it's kind of the beginnings of a grand unified theory of entrepreneurship, is that those 4 jobs are actually all the same job. And they need to be managed in the same way. Because in all of those 4 places, we have the same fundamental question, which is, how do we figure out who's making progress under conditions of extreme uncertainty? And so as a result, when we buy a startup, and then we hand it over to our new product development team, they say, wait, you paid $700 million for this? It's only worth $10 million. And Corp Dev's like, well, that's not my problem. I already bought it. It's already done. You figure it out, right? So we're making this kind of like company-wide build-buy decision, but we're not actually thinking about it in a common and rigorous way. So I hope as you see the talks, as you kind of grapple with this in your own life, you start to think about what is the mindset that is required for us to start to embed in our company entrepreneurship as a corporate function and a corporate discipline. So with that, I wanted to say again, thank you all very much, and let's get this conference started, shall we? Thank you very much.